This particular gathering has become a tradition here at Salt Lake County, and it's one that I just wish we didn't have to go through. And sadly, every year there are more pinwheels placed recognizing children who are the victims of abuse and domestic violence. And obviously, it doesn't need to be stated, that's a tragedy in our community. While the pinwheels are beautiful, stunning, they represent something that is harmful and horrific. And I just want to thank the Strong County team for being here today. Amazing elected officials, leadership from organizations who stand for change. I'm so grateful to have the partnerships that we have in the community. And again, I just wish that this was an activity that was not part of my schedule, their schedules, and all of our focus. There's so many great community leaders working to move us forward in this community, and I think about not only the impact to children and families, but also to the time spent and the effort spent to combat this difficult situation in our community. A couple of suggestions for those of you who are listening in, for people in the community. Listen and engage. You can be a conduit for change. I have been at a couple of press conferences with Sheriff Rivera and DA Gill this week. One of them yesterday related to sexual violence, and today we're talking about childhood violence and child abuse and family abuse and domestic abuse. And I want to commend them for their diligent efforts in active techniques. And I think one of them is when officers arrive on site, training so that they can understand what's going on in a family. And sometimes there are subtle signals. And then with the case of the district attorney, our county council, and thank you, Chair Stringham, for being here, and Jim Bradley, but our council, along with our broader county, continues to fund specialty prosecutors. And that's really key to us doing what we need to do here at Salt Lake County. So I appreciate the partnerships. I want to thank the volunteers who are out here. I'm here as early as 7:30 this morning. Let's get here later next year because we have fewer to put into the ground. And with that, I'll turn this over to Chair Stringham.
Well, as you can see, my colleagues all have written comments, and I didn't do that this year, mostly because I didn't speak last year, and second because I'm going to speak from the heart today, and hopefully I can get through it. I've been a friend, a teacher, a mother, a scout leader, and in every one of those roles, I've had an opportunity to teach about childhood predators and talk about how to keep your kids safe and talk about how important it is to protect yourself, to the children that I had oversight over. And unfortunately, in every one of those roles, a child has come forward to talk to me about abuse that they have witnessed. And we had to get the authorities involved, the parents involved, and have had to deal with that over the many years that I've been involved in those groups. I will say that my first experience with somebody who dealt with child abuse was a best friend in high school. We were both children at the time. And finally, the monster was taken out of her home. I will also tell you that this is something that we can combat if we are constantly teaching, working, educating, and helping the youth in our life understand what it is to say no, how to protect their bodies, and help them understand that they are worth something even after it has been perpetrated. I am so grateful for the work that's done by this organization, by the people I work with, by Sheriff Rivera, and by many organizations that fight on a daily basis to combat child abuse in our communities, in our homes, and in our schools.
Today we are here to bring awareness to child abuse prevention. Uh, this is really important because if we can prevent even one life, it matters. Today we're going to put these pinwheels up, and it reminds us of all the victims of child abuse. The Unified Police Department created a special victims unit many years ago. That unit stays very, very busy in investigating child abuse cases and child neglect cases. So today I just ask you, whoever is out there listening, to be aware, take a look, listen. Children will let you know if there is something wrong. Child neglect is child abuse as well, and sometimes we forget that, and we need to be aware that is a form of child abuse, physical abuse, verbal abuse. We work closely with doctors, teachers, mental health therapists in order to try to address the issue, but our investigations aren't going down. So we need to do more as far as prevention. And today I just ask for all of you, this is awareness month for us, and I just ask all of you to be aware and look around, and if you know a child who's in need of assistance by police, we are very well trained. We specialize in special victims and child abuse cases, and we also work closely with the district attorney's team, they also have a special victims unit, and we train together. We understand the prosecution part and also the criminal elements. So we work together as a team, and we want to make sure we're addressing them. But really, I would rather prevent it than have to investigate and take it to a criminal case. So today, that's all I'm asking for is more awareness on child abuse. Thank you.
Child abuse in any form, whether physical, psychological, or by neglect, is unacceptable. Today, as we express our commitment to ending child abuse, it is my hope that we consider the root causes of these tragedies. To end the cycle of abuse, it is imperative that we reach struggling adults and provide resources for coping with trauma, stress, and unique challenges. This endeavor is even more vital as we continue to navigate the repercussions of a global pandemic. We need all adults to have the tools to be safe, nurturing, and compassionate influences in our children's lives. In that vein, I want to express my thanks to the adults who stay dedicated to ending child abuse, to the family members, neighbors, and especially the educators who are aware of the signs and act when appropriate. Thank you. There are far too many pinwheels out here today, but together we can change that. Lastly, thanks to everyone here today. I am heartened to know that leaders in our community are drawing attention to this important reality and working to protect our children and ensure they are never victims again.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to take a second, first of all, to just acknowledge, as the mayor did, our county team of our electeds and different folks. And I think they represent a bipartisan, across the board, advocates, the allies, and all of you, because it's going to really take a community to address this issue. If you look at the flags, we have 3,741 flags for Salt Lake County. 3,741 flags that represent individuals. These are reported cases. And if truth be told, there are a lot of cases that are not reported. And as a state, we have almost more than 10,000 child victims. And childhood trauma, whether it's in the context of child sexual abuse or child physical abuse, we understand that. But childhood neglect is a co-equal, co-contributor to that adverse childhood trauma that happens. And childhood trauma is not only as the direct recipients of that trauma, but also as witnesses in those family structures, which contribute to that. And research indicates and tells us, so if you think about ACEs, which is adverse childhood experiences, we have research that shows that there is an impact from the dysfunction within family, there's a dysfunction within our communities, within our educational systems, and what that tells us, every one of us who comes in contact with a child has a role to play in creating a safe and stable environment for that child to succeed. And so at the Salt Lake County DA's office, we started to look into that data. As the Children's Justice Center, we started to create forensic interview techniques that actually were cognitively and trauma informed so we could gather that information. We were also one of the first ones to expand to include child physical abuse to also gather that information. But when we looked at this data, we recognized that we had an important role to play because children, when they witness this and they experience this, it's not only the physical body that takes that trauma, but their brains, their neurodevelopment is impacted by that. So one of the things that we also know is that children are also incredibly resilient. So last year, for the first time, the Salt Lake County DA's office advocated and created Camp Hope, where we took 80 children who intersected with the DA's office who were witnesses or suffered from that trauma from ages 8 to 17 for a 1 week long of trauma-informed counselors to give them a return back to their childhood. Because we know that if we can, as a community, give them good memories to replace those bad memories, that we can start to impact. Every one of us has a role to play in this. I'm sorry that we have to put 3,741 flags here, and that it should be a call to action, a call to get engaged. And every single one of us has a role to play in that. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jocelyn, the Executive Director at Family Support Center, and like many people have mentioned, this year Salt Lake County had 3,741 confirmed cases of child abuse. Evidence shows that children's early experience impact them throughout life, positively and negatively. Our goal currently is and continue to be to create safe, stable, and nurturing relationships and environments that ensure children and families succeed and communities thrive. We know that the safest communities are those that have the most resources. Family Support Center is proud to be part of the Salt Lake County resource ecosystem. We recognize that all families need extra support sometimes, and that seeking help is a sign of strength and resiliency. This is a moment to build a child and family well-being system that prepares families to grow and thrive together. We thank Salt Lake County for standing with us in our mission to protect children and prevent abuse. Child abuse knows no racial, religious, socioeconomic, or geographic boundaries. We know that the safest communities. Child abuse is preventable, but it takes a community to commit to building a safe and joyful future for our children. We ask you to join us in our efforts to ensure that children not only in Salt Lake County, but everywhere grow up feeling loved and cared for. Thank you.
I think we all have to do our part. Part of it is public awareness and engagement in your communities. Part of it continues to be, or part of it would be, continuing to invest as we have. The sheriff and the DA talked about some specialty programs that we support at the county, and I'm certain we're going to continue to support. I think we have to become more honest about the challenge. We have a cultural issue in our community often that we want to be very focused on the positive, and sometimes I think that leads to overlooking the negative. And we have to believe a family member when a child and they're sharing an incident within the home. So there are a number of factors off the top of my head, and I don't know, Jocelyn, if you have anything else to add.
Yeah, I feel like the biggest issue is prevention and also removing the stigma from parents that it's okay to ask for help. And like I mentioned, asking for help is a sign of strength and resiliency. And if we can offer support to families and be on the preventative side and not be reactive, then we can prevent a lot of the cases. When families have resources and feel safe in their communities and the stigma is taken away, then we can really get to the families that need the most support. And like we mentioned, child abuse knows no socioeconomic, knows no, it is everywhere. And so being able to offer support rather than shame is the key to prevention.